Aboriginal communities say if the federal government wants to close the gap, it needs to change the remote work for the dole program into something that works for them. The government has promised to redesign the much criticised community development employment program with indigenous community input. But some Aboriginal leaders say they haven't seen positive signs of that so far. Jane Bardon reports.
In the remote Northern Territory community of Banatjal near Katherine, Jawoyn women, including traditional owner Esther Balambara, have developed a small business making bush medicine balms.
With leaf and with oil, we mix the oil in a pot and then we put all that to boil.
But they don't make enough to live on, so they also have to work for the dole. They're among 41,000 mostly Aboriginal people who've had to do work-like activities for 25 hours a week on the federal government's Community Development or CDP programme. Until May it was mandatory, and Esther Balambara says many of the activities are pointless.
It's just the gammon work. You gotta just go and sit down in the office, don't do much work.
She says because remote groceries are so expensive, the $300 a week dole isn't enough, and she's worried the CDP isn't getting young people into jobs and helping them stay out of trouble.
They do a lot of that drinking and smoking. That ganja is very, very bad.
She brings young people out to this culture and healing site, but says it's very difficult to help them. So the Jawoyn invited 300 women from NT remote communities, which have the same welfare and substance dependence problems, to a forum at Banatjal to discuss solutions. Among them was Wardaman Ranger Natalie Blittner from Katherine.
I reckon in the working for the dole, they should put people in the real jobs instead of making them sit down and not doing nothing.
And the important part is to try and empower not only our women, but our men.
Jawoyn leader Lisa Mumbin was one of the forum's speakers. She says governments haven't closed the gap because most of the funds meant to help heal Aboriginal people and raise them out of poverty have gone to non-Indigenous organisations.
I've been part of many consultations in the Northern Territory and in Canberra. It's just the talk, no action. And the more you keep changing from that top level, nothing's going to happen in terms of closing the gap.
The federal government, but also Northern Territory government saying, oh, we're spending hundreds of millions of dollars trying to close the gap. What do you think when you hear those statements?
Those Indigenous funds that they provide, it's going to a non-Indigenous organisation thinking they know best how to heal people, but they don't.
Both the federal and NT governments have said they will return more control to Indigenous communities, and the Jawoyn Association recently got the contract to deliver the CDP in the Katherine region. Lisa Mumbin says it's tried to improve the programme by offering better activities and training.
It's preparing a lot of our people for jobs. Because of education-wise, a lot of them are not really fully on that standard, fully educated.
The Jawoyn Association's chief executive, John Berto, has led NT Indigenous organisations tackling welfare dependence for decades. He's appealing to the government to make the CDP programme's rules similar to what they used to be 12 years ago. Then the CDEP offered Aboriginal people full-time work, and their employer organisations paid them wages on top of the dole.
It'd be like a full-time job. Maybe the concept of the CDP with a top-up, I would just call it a wage. Give money for wages, that's it.
Because people did used to view the old CDEP as more of a real job, didn't they?
Correct. People are calling out loud for it to return to the original program, but with a wage component and more funding for equipment, materials and that type of thing.
He was shocked when the first thing the federal government did in May, after it promised Indigenous consultation to redesign the CDP, was make it voluntary.
Unless they start consulting extensively with the community, then they're not going to get it right. They're never going to get it right.
And he says while people on the CDP aren't now being caused hardship by having their dole cut, fewer are turning up. But in the nearby community of Barunga, Francis Comfrey says He's still coming to mow the grass on the CDP every day because he hopes it will lead to a real job.
I'm looking for a better job, but at the moment just trying to make my way.
The Burunga CDP manager of Enthea Friday says even though she's offering people more training, it's hard to get them into the community's few, mostly government jobs.
It's a bit hard to persuade the other stakeholders to employ our people.
What kinds of things are those organisations saying about why they won't do it?
Because of the barriers. Some of us have got like family issues. It's hard for us to stay focused or for them to stay focused at work because they know they have to attend funerals in each community, and sometimes the funeral lasts for about a week or a month.
John Bardon wants to tackle that problem by being able to offer more people on CDP jobs in the Javan Association. To do that, he says the NT and federal governments need to give indigenous organisations more local contracts to deliver services and construct government buildings.
We're getting companies from Darwin, from down south, taking on these contracts, and they're not coming to Javan at all.
But John Bardon says his organisation's turnover has doubled in 5 years and 82% of its staff are now Indigenous. And he's feeling more enthusiasm in the community for change.
In fact, there is a lineup for people wanting to work with in Java. That's never been like that before. You had to go and drag people out of the bed to try and get them to work. They're out of bed, they knock on the door early in the morning wanting a job. So what a turnaround, what a turnaround.
That's Javan Association Chief Executive John Berto speaking there to Jane Bardon.